The Peculiar Predicaments of Philip, the Perplexed Pencil Pusher. Philip woke up with a groan, his eyes barely open as he fumbled for his alarm clock. Another day, another dollar or so, he hoped.
Another day.
As he dragged himself out of bed, he couldn't help but feel a sense of dread wash over him. The daily grind of the office was enough to make anyone feel like a cog in the machine. But for Philip, it was a special kind of torture. With a heavy sigh, he made his way to the kitchen, his mind already racing with the tasks that lay ahead. He poured himself a cup of lukewarm coffee, grimacing at the bitter taste, and quickly gulped it down, hoping it would provide the jolt of energy he so desperately needed. As he stepped out the door, Philip couldn't help but notice the strange happenings around him. The birds seemed to be engaged in a synchronized dance, their chirps almost melodic in nature. The neighbors, usually engrossed in their own routines, were now engaged in a lively discussion, their hands gesturing wildly as they spoke.
What in the world is going on today?
Shaking his head, Philip made his way to the bus stop, his mind already focused on the impending workday. Little did he know, the weirdness had only just begun. The bus ride was a surreal experience, to say the least. As Philip settled into his seat, he couldn't help but notice the other passengers.
No, you're wrong. I'm telling you, it was blue, not green.
Just a few more stitches and this giraffe sweater will be perfect.
One man was engaged in a heated debate with his reflection in the window, while a woman in the back was knitting what appeared to be a sweater for a giraffe. Philip tried his best to ignore the bizarre happenings around him, but it was becoming increasingly difficult. By the time he reached his office, he was already feeling a bit off-kilter.
This day is just getting weirder and weirder.
As he stepped through the doors, he was greeted by a sight that would forever be seared into his memory. The usually staid and serious office had been transformed into a veritable circus. Colleagues were juggling paper clips, while others were engaged in a heated game of office chair races. Philip stood there, mouth agape, unsure of how to react.
What is happening here?
Just as he was about to turn around and head back home, his boss, Mr. Fitzpatrick, approached him with a manic grin.
Philip, my boy, so glad you could join the fun. We're having a bit of a team-building exercise today, and we simply must have you participate.
Before Philip could protest, he found himself being dragged into the chaos, his protests falling on deaf ears. He was thrust into a game of office supply, Twister, his limbs tangled in a precarious web of rubber bands and paper clips.
This can't be real. How did I end up here?
As the day wore on, Philip's sense of reality continued to slip away.
I found myself engaged in a heated debate with the photocopier, convinced that it was plotting against me.
The other employees, far from being concerned, seemed to find his antics hilarious, egging him on with gleeful laughter. By the time the workday finally came to an end, Philip was thoroughly exhausted, both physically and mentally. As he made his way home, he couldn't help but wonder if he had somehow slipped into an alternate dimension.
The journey back was no less strange than the one to the office. Philip found himself engaged in a lively discussion with a stray cat.
Life, my friend, is but a series of inexplicable events. Embrace the chaos.
The bus ride was a blur of strange occurrences, with passengers breaking out into spontaneous song and dance routines. When Philip finally reached his apartment, he collapsed onto his bed, his mind reeling.
I can't shake the feeling that something is off, that the world I knew has been turned upside down.
As he lay there, staring at the ceiling, he couldn't help but wonder what the next day would bring.
Would the office continue to be a surreal playground, or would things return to their usual mundane state?
And what about the strange occurrences he had witnessed throughout the day? Were they a sign of something more sinister, or simply the result of a collective case of mass hysteria?
My mind is racing with questions, but as I drift off to sleep, I can't help but feel a sense of excitement.
After all, in a world that had become so predictable and boring, a little bit of weirdness might just be the spice of life he needed.